Hello, my friends. Today I want to talk to you about how to respond to the spouse objection. And so, if you've been in sales for a while, you know that sometimes the objection somebody has at the end, or the concern, or the question, or the reason not to make a decision now is to say, I need to talk to my spouse. Or it might be true in a business to business setting that they say, oh, I need to talk to my business partners. But I want to speak specifically today about the question of, how do we respond when somebody says, I want to think about it because I need to talk to my spouse? I remember working at my former company that I was encouraged to handle that objection on the spot and make sure that everybody bought now, because if they didn't buy now, they weren't going to buy later. And so I was trained to ask questions and try to solve this problem and get the person to make a decision without talking to their spouse. I never actually did that way. It didn't align with me. And so I had I had some challenges with my sales manager where we went head to head and got frustrated with each other multiple times because it just wasn't in my value system, especially when we're talking about big purchases. I believe, at the time we were making $20,000 offers at the company I was working at. And I would never make a $20,000 decision without talking to my spouse. I don't think that's appropriate inside of most marriages. There are some marriages in which that's fine, but in most marriages, that wouldn't be the appropriate next step. And it doesn't really honor the relationship with your spouse. Now, at the same time, some people go so far to the other end that they allow themselves to lose momentum in the conversation and lose the potential for a sale because they don't want to respond to that objection. And so they just say, okay, sounds good. Let me know what you think or when you decide. And they just end the conversation there. And in that case, it may be true that that person's oftentimes not going to come back and buy after talking to their spouse. And another reality to be aware of is that when somebody says, I want to talk to my spouse, sometimes it's because they need to have that conversation to make the decision. And other times it's because they've already made their decision and they don't want to buy, but it feels easier to blame it on somebody else. One of the things I believe in how we respond to objections is that we ought to validate the objection, validate how that person's feeling, and then we ought to get curious and ask some additional questions. And then I want to end every call, as you know, with yes, no, or the next call booked. And so that's really important to me. And so how I'm going to respond to the objection of I want to talk to my spouse before I make the decision is to say, great, I totally get it. I'd have that conversation with my spouse as well. This is a big decision. Let me ask you a question though. Have you made your decision for you yet? If he or she says, whatever you think, babe, I trust you. Do you know what you want to do? This invites this person to own their part of the decision. And it helps me get clarity on where they're really coming from. And so if I ask that question, if I say, I totally get it, I'd talk to my spouse about a big decision like this too. Let me ask you a question though. Have you made your decision for you yet? If he or she says, whatever you think, babe, I trust you. Do you know what you want to do? If they say, yes, I'm in, I just want to make sure that they're cool with it too. Well, now I know that that really is the only objection. And all I need to do is say, awesome. How long do you need to talk to your spouse? Do you need till tomorrow? Would Thursday be better? When should we chat again? And I might offer them a couple of times and line up a 15-minute decision call where we can make that decision together. Yes, no, or the next call booked. So there's a momentum to this. And that decision isn't going to linger. It's not a remaining long-term open loop. There's a decision deadline that we both agreed to. So they'll have that conversation. They also know they want to be in, so they'll have an empowered conversation. They've spoken that aloud. Or on the other hand, if I say, awesome, I'd talk to my spouse too if I were you. It's a big decision. Let me ask you a question. Have you made your decision for you yet? And they say, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. Then I might say, interesting. Let me know what's holding you back. Or what questions do you still have? And this way we can have a continued conversation. I can investigate a little further. Now, what they're basically telling me is it's not a spouse decision to be made. That's not the real or most pressing objection. The most pressing objection is they haven't decided if they want to do it yet, or they've got something else that's holding them back, like money or time or fear or whatever it might be. Maybe they think they're not good enough. So I just want to investigate more and say, okay, I hear that. Tell me more about that. What's holding you back, or what are you still considering? And I just want to be calm and curious to find more information. And ultimately, my goal in responding to objections is to help people make the best decision for them and for their family. And so if we investigate a little bit and like they really should join my program, it's the best decision for them, then I want to make it easy for them to say yes and be a part of this. I don't want them to be held back because they're scared. I want them to feel encouraged. I want them to feel empowered. I want to tell them I believe in them and that I'm confident I can help them, especially when I feel that way. Obviously, only when I feel that way. But on the other hand, if it's not a fit for somebody, I'm okay with coming to that conclusion in the end as well. I'm okay with asking some questions, investigating, learning more about them, and helping them make the decision that this isn't a fit right now. And maybe there's another way I can help them, or maybe there's someone I can refer them to, what have you. And so I just want you to consider like objection handling, not this like you against them, trying to convince them kind of situation. I want you to imagine that when you make an offer and somebody has a question or a concern or an objection, that this is just a normal next step in the process. And that our job is to get on the same side of the table as them, ask a few good questions, and help them make their decision. So this is really important. And it's really easy. It's really easy to implement. So I'm going to remind you of the steps. Number one, we want to validate the objection. Number two, we want to help them take ownership and they're part of the decision because they're the biggest decision maker here, not the person who wasn't on the call, not the person who wasn't at the conference, not the person who doesn't know anything about this offer. They're the biggest decision maker. So we need to know, have they decided? Do they know that this is something they want to do yet? And if yes, fantastic. Let's just go to booking that next conversation. Let's ideally talk again in a day or two after they've spoken with their spouse. Let's come to a decision. If they haven't made their decision for themselves yet, what I'm realizing is we aren't at the root objection yet. And so that's where we need to investigate, get curious, ask more questions, and try to find the root objection. I remember years ago learning in sales to isolate the objection. If you're dealing with 6 or 7 objections and you don't know it, you solve one, then comes the next. You solve that one, then comes the next. You solve that one, then comes the next. When we isolate the objection, we recognize like this is the one primary piece. And so if they say they just want to talk to their spouse, we ask, have they made their decision for themselves yet? And they say, yes, I'm in. I just want to make sure they're cool with it too. We've isolated the objection. There's nothing else. Like they just need to talk to their spouse. But if we say, have you made your decision for you yet? And they're like, no, I'm not sure yet. Now we realize there's more objections. So we need to actually narrow to those objections, see if we can ask a few curious questions, share some information, and ultimately get to a place where they say, yeah, that sounds good. I want to do that. And then we've isolated back to the single objection of the spouse. And so that's the process for this. That's the process that fits into my value system. I want to give people the space to talk to their spouse. I want to honor that relationship and the opportunity and need for that. But I also want to make the decision with momentum and clarity and ownership and help them make the best decision for themselves. And so there is a timing piece in this that's important. 1 or 2 days, ideally, if we were talking on Zoom, we want the decision made, certainly within a week. If we were at a live conference or a live event and they're trying to make a decision, we want to make it easy for them to make a decision before they leave the event. But still have the space to talk to their spouse. That's why a 3-day event's really ideal event length, because we have time to provide significant value before we make our offer and enough time after we've made our offer for people to talk to a spouse, to pray on it, etc. I hope this is helpful. I know that this is an objection that comes up for people a lot, and I know that there are different opinions on how to handle this. I don't want to empower people to make decisions without their spouse. That's not in my value system. It could be in yours. What I want to do is help them make the decision with their spouse, but I want them to make their decision first and then confirm with the spouse and make a final decision with me. Good luck engaging with your prospects. Remember that when you're handling objections, just operating in a calm, confident manner and continuing to be a leader is really important. By the way, we're only a few weeks away now. We're about a month, 5 weeks, I think. Maybe 6 weeks. We've still got a little bit of time. We're 5 to 6 weeks away from our summer conference, June 19th through 21st in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Christian Coaches Academy Live. I really want you there. In fact, we've got big, exciting news. We actually upgraded to a nicer hotel yesterday. And so when you're watching this, by the time you're checking this out, that should be reflected on our landing page for the conference, ChristianCoachesAcademyLive.com. We want you to go there, ChristianCoachesAcademyLive.com. Check out our new conference center. We're going to be downtown Milwaukee, walkable distance to Summerfest at a beautiful Hilton hotel. A lot of space for everyone. We've got great room rates and great specials for everybody who's attending the conference. We're going to have amazing food. We're providing lunch all 3 days, a couple of dinners. We're all going to go to Summerfest, the biggest music festival in the world, on Friday night. And we're going to have amazing content that's going to help you master sales, design your most ideal signature offer for your business, and make it easy for more and more of the right people to say yes. We've got guest speakers coming in to talk about sales and marketing and chasing your dreams. We've got amazing sponsors, and it's going to be a collection of some of my favorite people in the world, some amazing Christian coaches and leaders who I know you'll enjoy getting to network with in person. This could be a turning point for you and your business that launches you into your next season with significant power, strength, and impact, so that you can fulfill on the calling that God's given you. I would love for you to join us, Christian Coaches Academy Live. I hope to see you there, and I'll talk to you all more soon. God bless you. Cheers.